My name is Cameron Stallings, as you now know. I'm a designer, developer, and artist in oscillating and often overlaid order. I've been working with XR for the last 3 years, and over the last year I've been expanding my sights towards technology as a whole. I've got some questions for y'all, and maybe a few answers too. Firstly, I'd like to ask y'all, what is our definition of technology, and what is your definition of technology, as well as what is our definition of a tool, and what is your definition of a tool? In view of the last decade, I feel it's appropriate to ask ourselves these questions. Our shared definition from the internet is interesting. Tool, a device such as a saw, shovel, or drill, used to perform or facilitate manual or mechanical work. A machine, such as a lathe, used to cut and shape machine parts or other objects. Technology, the application of science, especially to industrial or commercial objectives. It's interesting to put these two definitions up against each other. Does technology begin at the hand axe, a sharpened piece of stone? We often classify technology as a tool as well. We often also classify it as an intermediate layer between tools. Either way, we must now inspect each of our technological tools. What was it designed for? Who was it designed for? What did we want from it then, and what do we want from it now? One of the most powerful tools I've ever had in my lifetime was the original iPhone. In the time between that one and the one I just got, I've noticed a few shifts. With the original, it was the ultimate tool. Music, photography, messaging, and video, all in my pocket. When I picked up this new one last week, unfortunately, I was only excited about the storage. Over the last year, I felt my phone, my pocket computer, had begun to fail as a tool. Most of its failure, though, only due to software, in fact. It brought me to question, when does a tool cease to be a tool? I use my pocket computer to streamline my life, to harness the power of our shared computing network and repository of knowledge. Lately, though, I've been asking myself, is my life being streamlined if I'm having a harder time paying attention, juggling relationships, moderating my exposure to endless stimuli and information? How much control do I have? How much context do I have? How much control and context do those who are much less tech-savvy than I have? I then contemplated, when does a tool become a weapon? I often think of a hammer. You can hit a nail, or you can hit yourself in the head. What does it feel like when you look down to find the head of your hammer has snapped off and you've been smacking the handle on the wall for the last hour? You look further down to find that your hand is now glued to the handle. It turns out that some of the biggest frailties within technology are becoming more and more outlined. There is much to learn from a new movement called humane technology, and others like it. They're still being formed, but we'll come back to this later. Two years ago, I stood up here to explain and reflect on how VR could provide and has begun to provide amazing tools for building worlds. I still find that to be true. In fact, I brought Dreams, which is a new world builder, in the back, which is now the most prime example. That's not to say that traditional methods of building game worlds aren't sound, like using Unreal or Unity. But Dreams now offers the most cohesive and accessible world building tool to date. Depending on where you want to host that world, however, it may have a few drawbacks, mainly because it's owned by PlayStation. But as a designer and as someone who is studying it, it truly is the best kit out there. The design speaks for itself. At the start of my journey, I became more convinced of VR's merit with prolonged exposure to it as a utility. It became a new tool in my toolbox. This was immediately after the setup of my first HTC Vive, that same one back there, and my much anticipated first session with Tilt Brush. Later on that year, Oculus Medium was released, and again the tool strengthened. As I began making Unity scenes and exhibiting them for the first time, the tool strengthened once more. VR became a new brush and a new canvas. AR was becoming that too. I knew that no matter what happened, even if VR went silent again for another decade, I'd be booting up my headset to use this tool. I used Medium to sculpt the two prints that are in the back there, provided by Form 3D Foundry, if you'd like to know. There's some info on that in the back. I often still demo painting apps first for folks that are new to VR. Having Tilt Brush here tonight is again testament to that. It's just you and your first 3D paint stroke, followed by many, many more, and then your name, and then your dog's name, and then you ask me, can you see what I'm doing? One of my favorite parts of the tool is a part that remains one of my favorites to this day. It's the deprivation that it offers. Sculpting in the vacuum of space, or surrounded by the color of my choosing, in deprivation I can tap into a flow state reliably. A flow state I remember from my younger years, head buried in a sketchbook, lit by a single lamp. These days, when I'm sketching, like when I was sketching a zine that I brought for y'all, I find my flow is often interrupted. This is a normal experience for us these days. And now we have studies that show how much time it takes to regain full attention once you've been interrupted. And after constant interruption, how we then train ourselves to self-interrupt. Do you ever catch yourself opening up a new tab for no reason and then almost going to that website you probably shouldn't be looking at right now? Unfortunately, we don't always catch ourselves. In fact, we're pretty good at not catching ourselves. I challenge us to question and to contemplate what we want from our tools. I challenge us not to become complacent in these tools. I challenge us to tackle the roadblocks that hold these tools back, no matter how insurmountable they may seem. I caution that what we currently dislike about the internet, social media, and information technology on a grand scale will seep into XR, AI, or AR and VR. And I wonder sometimes, how has it done so already? Going back to humane technology, and in fact, beyond that, what I've begun to call human technology. My phone, my computer, tools that for me sometimes are falling apart. By a show of hands, who has a smart speaker at home? Okay, we've got some people in here. By another show of hands, who does not have a smart speaker due to privacy concerns? Almost equal there. So here's an awesome tool. I don't have one, but I've used them. And they're pretty keen. Turning off the lights, setting alarms while you've got your hands covered in dough. And yet, some of us are too uncomfortable to use them. So now, it's no longer a tool if I'm not using it. I would like to use it in confidence. And hopefully in the future, when there's a smart speaker that I can use in confidence, I definitely will. About a year ago, I began to shift some of my attention from XR. I zoomed out on technology as a whole, and as I surveyed, I slowly but surely began to see that the current ecology of the information technology that we currently are in is not sustainable. Some of the factors that attribute to this are attention maximization, which are applications that are designed to maximize your attention. Another is surveillance economics, in which case a lot of the economy on the internet is now being very much fueled by our data. Data in exchange for free services. Now, of course, here in America, we love free. And these services give us amazing tools. And whenever I bring this up, folks often are quick to mention to me, but it does this, and I met my friend here, and this and that. And of course, this is all true. And I'll never say that that's not true, because I, of course, have gotten some of those benefits as well. As a designer, my root impulse is to create solutions. And as well, what I've seen with these problems is that these are some of our biggest problems. And so now, as a designer of technology, I am compelled to tackle some of these current problems so that the tools that are empowered by AI and XR can become what they say they are, tools. Humane technology is simply a call to design technology in view of our human minds, our strengths and our frailties, to add another lens to the microscope. The first place I point people when they're more interested in humane technology is humanetech.com. That is the home of the Center for Humane Technology, which is a new organization formed by some folks down in Silicon Valley who've left some of their jobs at some of the big five and have decided to start the dialogue about how we can improve these tools. And in their words, they say, we envision a world where technology supports our shared well-being, sense-making, democracy, and ability to tackle complex and global challenges. I imagine no matter how familiar you are with technology, you've all felt pause in the past few years, and trepidation, possibly anger. And I encourage you to not let that get you down. As a designer, I often try to be aware that our utopic and dystopic visions are all relative to the present. So just as much as it may seem infeasible now to build technology that you can trust and that you can have confidence in, doesn't mean it's not possible. And in fact, if we can't dream it, we're not going to build it. Which is why currently, today, I like to speak on these issues as much as possible. A couple of the biggest innovations I see, especially as AI and XR come online with more strength, I see innovations in trust and confidence. Earlier I mentioned the smart speaker because it's a tool that I've interacted with and I'd love to use, but I can't trust it, so I don't. But in the future, if we can reorganize some of the incentive structures of some of these companies, I would love to give all my data, because what I get is context. We were talking at Joshua's the other night with Sarah as well, talking about medical issues. And one of the best things that AI could offer was monitoring you every day, something that could be correlating with your doctor. And what we see is that with AI, we can intuit and find illnesses before you would ever know them. And in fact, some places are doing that without your knowledge, and that then could then affect your insurance rate. Now these are realities that we don't want to happen. But if we could flip that and put the data back on your side, it would be an amazing tool. And I would put sensors all over my house, but currently I don't. A bicycle for the mind. It's a metaphor I quite like, and others have gravitated towards as well. I've always loved it, and unfortunately, when it comes to this bicycle, we haven't allowed this bicycle to stop so that we can re-examine its parts. Ever since we put it together and got on it and started pedaling as fast as we could. Many of its parts are beginning to degrade under increasing speed and increasing load. I'm not talking about the speed or power of your PC. I'm talking about the ability for personal computing and information technology to be an accessible tool for us humans. Our opportunity in the 2020s is to reevaluate the best of our tools. And in doing so, it is clear to me that we can not only create a bicycle for the mind, but maybe a spaceship. I kind of like the metaphor, and it would be kind of fun if each of you could even think of what you would want for your mind. That's all I've got tonight. Thank you so much. If you want to know more, just come up and ask. I've also got a zine that I made. I've only got 5 copies tonight, but if you want one, I'll be printing many more. and I'll maybe drop them in a local comic shop, or I can even ship some out. And again, my contact info, as well as humanetech.com. Both of these, my site will have a recap of everything I've gone through, and Humane Tech outlines humane technology in great detail. And if you reach out to me, I've also got tons of podcasts I can put you towards. So thank you so much for listening.